Snow collected on my coat when I stepped onto my daughter's porch. Lights from the villa hit the driveway like a spotlight. I knocked once. The door opened a crack. Daniela stood there, blocking the entry. "Who invited you, old woman? This is only for family." Her voice carried straight through the hallway. Olivia shifted behind her, eyes dropping to the floor. Someone inside lowered a fork. The room went still. I held out the small wrapped box. "These are for Sophie and Caleb." Daniela didn't reach for it. "You need to leave before they come downstairs." I stood there for one clean second, steady breath, steady grip. "You forgot who made you family." Then I turned into the snow. The words carried through the villa. A fork inside touched a plate, then stopped. Olivia shifted her stance, grip tightening on the doorframe. I stood still. "I'm their mother." "Not tonight." Daniela's jaw tightened. I leaned a little, enough to see the dining room. The long table was full. Olivia's parents, her sister, 2 nieces. A chair that used to be mine wasn't there anymore. Candles flickered in a straight line down the center. I lifted the gift again. "It'll only take a second." Olivia stepped forward, palms angled downward as if calming the air. "Helen, it's not a good time. We don't want confusion when the kids come down." Her using my name made the space feel smaller. "I won't stay," I told them. "Just hand this to them." Daniela didn't move. Her eyes stayed fixed on mine, steady and unblinking. "Leave before they see you." The housekeeper appeared behind them, standing near the hallway with her hands clasped. Her glance swept quickly toward me, then back to Daniela. I kept my voice level. "You said family. You forgot who made you one." Olivia's shoulders tensed. Daniela's fingers tightened around the door. The air between us held for a full second. "That's enough." Daniela pushed, motioning slightly toward the driveway. "Go." I shifted my grip on the gift. The snow globe I'd tucked in my coat pocket slipped out, hit the stone step, and broke open. Water spread fast across the porch, the tiny house inside collapsing under the light. Daniela's expression didn't change. Olivia's eyes flicked toward the pieces, then away again. I looked at the shattered glass, then at my daughter. "Enjoy your dinner." I turned. The housekeeper moved closer to the door. "I'll close it now, Mrs. Whitmore." Her voice stayed low. The latch clicked behind me. I walked down the path, snow gathering around my boots. The villa lights glowed across the yard, but no one stepped out. No one called after me. I reached my car, opened the door, and placed the gift carefully on the passenger seat. The broken snow globe wasn't worth picking up. Water clung to my glove, cold and thin. Inside the car, I started the engine. The heater pushed out lukewarm air. I checked the mirror. The porch light shut off, leaving only the outline of the villa against the snow. I backed out slowly, the tires crunching through fresh powder. The street ahead stretched toward the main road, lined with houses wrapped in Christmas lights. At the stop sign, I looked in the mirror again. Curtains in the villa shifted, then stilled. No face appeared. I whispered, steady and quiet, "Merry Christmas, Daniela." I turned onto the larger road. More lights, more houses, more families gathered for dinner. The windshield wipers cleared a thin layer of frost. I adjusted my hands on the wheel and kept driving, steady through the falling snow. The villa disappeared behind the trees, leaving only the road, the cold, and the straight line ahead. Then I continued toward town, not slowing once. The motel door clicked behind me as I set my bag on the chair. The lamp near the window turned on with one tap. I placed my phone on the table, opened the notebook, and clicked my pen. "Let's start," I murmured. I dialed my carrier. The automated voice played. I pressed 0 twice until a human voice came through. "Hi, I need to check why outgoing calls to one specific number fail." Keys clacked on the other end. "Number ending in 48? "Yes, that one." A pause. I watched the heater blow warm air across the carpet. "All right, read it out loud." Another pause. "Blocked by recipient. Got it." I closed my notebook halfway. "Is that permanent?" Another pause. "Understood. Thanks." I ended the call and opened the call log on my screen. "Try again," I muttered. I pressed Daniela's contact. One ring, then the immediate drop. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. I dialed the motel phone from the nightstand and called my own number. It rang normally. "So the phone works," I noted. I picked up my pen. Call attempt, 1, blocked. Call attempt, 2, blocked. I tapped the page twice to mark the entries. Next, I opened the paper phone bill I'd folded into my coat pocket. I smoothed it on the table. Let's see. I ran my finger down the list. Call, call, call. I reached Daniela's line. Marked restricted. I tapped it with the pen. Noted. I called the carrier again. Yes, it's me again. I'm looking at my paper bill. Why is this call marked restricted? A pause. Read that slower. Another pause. Customer blocked incoming. Customer blocked SMS. Okay. Print confirmation? No. Email is fine. Send it tonight. I hung up and circled the entry 4 times. I opened my laptop. The motel Wi-Fi connected on the second try. I logged into my banking app. Transfers. Last 3 months. I zoomed in. There it is. $500. $500. $500. I pressed the call button for my bank. A woman answered with a crisp greeting. Hi, I need confirmation for monthly transfers to account ending 02. I typed the numbers as she read them back. Yes, those. I listened to her keystrokes. Read that again. 3 years, automatic transfer. Correct. No, don't cancel. I just need verification. Send full activity to my email. I ended the call and tapped the screen lightly. 3 years documented. I checked voicemail. 0 messages. I clicked the icon again in case the refresh lagged. Still empty. I opened the motel notepad. Check voicemail. No response. I called Daniela once more. Ring. Drop. I kept the phone at my ear for 3 seconds. That's 3. I wrote it down. 3 calls. No answer. I dialed Olivia's number next. Her phone rang twice, then cut off. I called again. This time, immediate disconnect. Blocked there too, I noted. I slid the notebook closer and wrote in a single line, both numbers blocked. I opened my laptop again and pulled up social media. I checked Daniela's page. Friends reduced. Posts hidden. Commenting locked. I clicked the privacy info notice. Restricted by profile owner. I read it out loud. Restricted, again. I took a screenshot and saved it into a folder titled December Documentation. I checked email. Nothing. I refreshed. Still nothing. I pressed my palm on the table. All right, next. I walked to the front desk. The clerk looked up from his monitor. I need the timestamp for my check-in. He typed. That time? Read it slowly. I repeated it back. Good. Write it for me. He tore off a slip and handed it over. I folded it and slid it into my notebook. Back in the room, I placed every document in one column. Paper bill, check-in slip, banknotes, call attempts. I tapped the stack twice. Order is clear. The heater hummed again. I checked the time on the microwave clock. I lifted the phone. One more. I dialed Daniela's number. Straight disconnect. I put the phone down and wrote, Outcome confirmed. I closed the notebook, turned off the lamp, and let the room fall silent. I opened my laptop on the motel desk and pulled the chair closer. The Wi-Fi bar flashed once before connecting. I clicked through the browser tabs in order, keeping everything clean and numbered. Step 1, I murmured, timeline. I opened Daniela's social media page. The banner loaded first. A family photo at the pier. Olivia's family, not mine. I zoomed in. The kids were smiling at someone behind the camera. I tapped the screen. All right, post filters. I clicked the drop-down. Photos from this year. Everything loaded. Birthday party, school event, barbecue. Not a single image contained me. I leaned back. No mention anywhere. Good to note. I turned on the motel desk lamp and pulled my notebook closer. Entry 1, full removal from photos. I scrolled further. Daniela's caption under a summer picture read, Our little circle. Couldn't ask for more. I spoke the words quietly. Little circle. Excluding me. I took a screenshot, saved it, tagged it, Post A, removed grandmother presence. Next, I opened Olivia's page, blocked. Not surprising, I recorded. Then I tried searching my own name, tagged in nothing, mentioned nowhere. Invisibility confirmed. I clicked the bank app again and opened the transfer history. 22,400 total, I counted, all marked as educational support. I highlighted each line with the cursor. Never acknowledged, never used as bridge. I took another screenshot and filed it into the evidence, financial folder. Next, emails. I opened the thread with Daniela. The last email exchange was from 2 years ago. I tapped my nail on the trackpad. 2 years. That's the pattern. Below, Daniela's last message read, "Mom, we'll talk soon." I read it with no reaction. No talk followed, noted. I clicked over to my voicemail inbox. Empty. I tapped the icon twice. Still empty. I folded my notebook open to a blank page. Entry 2, 0 communication, confirmed by carrier and voicemail records. I leaned toward the screen again. Enough gathering. I needed action. I opened the contacts list and scrolled to a number I hadn't used in a year. Grace McMillan. Old friend. Now an attorney. Reliable. I exhaled once, steady, and pressed call. The line rang twice before connecting. Her voice came firm. "Helen, it's been a while." "I need help," I told her, keeping my tone straight. "I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with." She lowered her voice. "Start from now. What's happening?" I walked through it point by point. Blocked calls, social media removal, bank transfers, the holiday rejection, everything gathered tonight. Grace interrupted only when she needed clarity. "Repeat the last part, the part about the number being blocked." I repeated it. She released a slow exhale. "That's deliberate alienation." "I want your legal view," I answered, "not your sympathy." "You'll get it," she replied. Paper rustled on her end. "You need to document everything. Screenshots, dates, financial records, call logs. You have more than enough to start." I opened a new folder labeled Case Prep. "I already started," I told her. "Good," her voice sharpened. "Helen, listen carefully. When adult children block a parent while still accepting money, excluding them from grandchildren, hiding events, and rewriting the narrative, it's an erasure attempt, and it's stronger than you think." "I know." "No," she corrected gently. "You suspected. Now you know." I tapped the edge of the table. "Next step?" "You come here tomorrow morning," she instructed. "Bring everything. We build the record. Then we decide whether to petition." "Understood." She paused. "Helen, one more question. Did Daniela tell the children anything about you?" I clicked back to a photo I had pulled up earlier, a bright picture of the kids opening gifts. The caption read, "Christmas with the whole family." I stared at the image. "She told them I moved away." Silence on her end. Then her voice came low and controlled. "So that's the story now. You vanished." I closed the laptop halfway. "Noted." Grace cleared her throat. "That lie is powerful evidence, but we'll talk about strategy tomorrow. Log everything tonight." "I will." "Good. Rest if you can. You'll need clarity tomorrow." She ended the call. I sat for a moment, keeping my hands still on the table. No wandering thoughts, no spiraling, just sequence, actions. I reopened the laptop and captured 3 more screenshots. The blocked call log, the filtered social media page, the caption implying I had moved away. I labeled each one. I called my own voicemail line again from the motel phone. My mobile lit up immediately. "Works," I said. I dialed Daniela's number next. Instant disconnect. I wrote it down. Call log sample 2, blocked. I opened the motel drawer and found a single envelope. I placed every printed item inside. Phone bill, check-in timestamp, handwritten notes, banking summary. I sealed it and wrote Grace. Morning on the front. I checked the time, 2:14 a.m. I clicked the laptop shut and placed it beside the envelope. Then I turned off the lamp. Tomorrow wasn't grief. Tomorrow was action. I lay back on the bed, fully alert, the heater cutting on again with a low hum. The choice was already made. I placed the envelope on my kitchen table and lined the edges square. The house was quiet. My phone rested face down beside the kettle. I checked the lock on the front door out of habit. Everything was in order. A car engine rolled into the driveway. Another door slammed, then another. I stepped toward the entryway but did not open the door. 3 silhouettes appeared through the frosted glass. Daniela stood slightly behind Olivia. A man in a dark suit checked the papers in his briefcase. I unlatched the top lock but kept the chain engaged. The door opened 2 inches. Olivia pushed forward first. "We need to talk." Her tone was already sharp, already rehearsed. Daniela hovered behind her with her arms folded tight. The attorney lifted his chin. "Mrs. Whitmore, my name is—" I raised a hand. "State it through the gap." He adjusted the briefcase. "Richard Bowman, representing Daniela and Olivia Pierce." Daniela's eyes darted at the chain. "Mom, open the door properly." I kept it as it was. "You made an appointment?" Olivia shifted her weight. "This doesn't require an appointment." Her voice tightened. "You filed something against us." I rested my hand lightly on the door frame. "I contacted my attorney. That's accurate." Daniela stepped forward, fingers tapping her elbow. "Withdraw it. Right now." Bowman cleared his throat. "Mrs. Whitmore, my clients would like to resolve this before things escalate." I kept my gaze on him. "Then speak plainly." He pulled a document from his folder. "We're requesting you withdraw any pending complaint regarding family interference or alienation." Olivia exhaled hard. "This is ridiculous, Helen. You're blowing everything out of proportion." I slid the door shut half an inch, enough to make them pause. "You blocked me. You erased communication. That's not proportion. That's action." Daniela's jaw tightened. "We're trying to avoid trouble." Olivia leaned closer to the opening. "Drop the complaint, or we'll declare you unfit. Do you understand?" I tilted my head. "Repeat that. Slower." Olivia's lips pressed thin. "Unfit, as in unable to behave appropriately around the children." Daniela's fingers curled at her sleeves. "Mom, please don't turn this into a war." "You came here with a lawyer," I noted. Bowman lifted a hand slightly as if to steady the room. "Let's keep this civil. We're offering a reasonable compromise." I lifted an eyebrow. "Describe it." He flipped to another page. "Limited visitation under their supervision, holidays only, contingent on your cooperation, and withdrawal of all legal steps." Daniela swallowed hard. "It's fair," Olivia added quickly. "And it keeps the kids stable." I tapped the door lightly with my fingers. "You want control, not stability." Olivia's expression froze for a moment. "Watch your tone." I shifted my posture upright. "My tone is consistent. Your actions aren't." She leaned closer to the gap. "You don't get to judge us from outside. You don't know what we're dealing with." "And you didn't ask what I was dealing with," I replied. "You just blocked me." Bowman interjected again, voice steady. "Mrs. Whitmore, this is your chance to avoid a drawn-out conflict." Daniela's voice wavered slightly. "We don't want to involve the court more than necessary." I looked straight at her. "You already involved it the moment you threatened unfitness." Olivia's shoulder jerked. "If you keep pushing, we will. We'll testify to instability, to boundary issues, whatever is needed." I placed my hand flat against the door. "You're setting a record, literally." Daniela blinked. "What?" I tapped my phone against the wood. "Audio. The moment you spoke the word unfit." Olivia stepped back a full pace. "You can't do that." "I can," I answered, and I did. Bowman raised both palms in caution. "Let's not escalate further." Daniela looked shaken. "Mom, why are you doing this?" I held her eyes. Because you made sure I had no other route. Olivia snapped. You're twisting everything. Then stand in front of a judge, I replied. Her nostrils flared. You think you'll win? I think the facts are clear. Daniela's voice cracked. We're your family. You said this was only for family, I reminded her. Your wording was precise. Olivia muttered under her breath. This is going nowhere. Bowman closed his folder. If you're refusing the offer, I am. I kept my tone steady. Completely. He adjusted his glasses. Then we'll proceed accordingly. Good, I replied. Proceed where everything is recorded. Daniela took a half step forward, hands clenched. You're choosing strangers over us. I lifted the door chain slightly, letting the metal catch the light. No, I'm choosing process. Olivia pointed a sharp finger through the small gap. You want to fight? You'll get one. I pushed the door shut another inch. Then file it. Bowman placed a hand on her arm. We're done here. Daniela looked at me for a long second, her lips pressed tight. This isn't over. No, I replied, sliding the door closed to a narrow slit. It's just beginning. Olivia let out a sharp scoff and turned away first, heels striking hard against the porch. Bowman followed with a stiff nod. Daniela lingered, breathing unevenly, then stepped back. The car doors opened. The engine started. They reversed down the driveway without looking back. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then the bottom latch. I lifted my phone. The recording timer glowed on the screen. I saved the file under a single word: visit. I opened my notebook and wrote down the timestamp, the threats, the offer, the lawyer's name, the posture and order of their arrival. Each entry was direct, concise, factual. When I finished, I placed the notebook beside the envelope marked for Grace. I checked the hour, 4:12 p.m. Grace would still be at her office. I picked up the phone and pressed call. She answered quickly, voice alert. Bring everything tomorrow, she instructed after I told her the details. This confirms the direction. I'm ready, I said. I know, she replied. Get rest. We have work ahead. I set the phone down, straightened the envelope, and looked once toward the locked door. The visit was over. The line was drawn. Tomorrow, the filing would begin. I arrived at Grace's office just after 9. The lobby was quiet. A receptionist pointed me toward the back hallway, and I followed the muted carpet to the door with her nameplate. Grace opened it before I knocked. Come in. She moved aside, her eyes already scanning the thick envelope under my arm. I set everything on her desk. She pulled the chair forward and motioned for me to sit. Start with the visit, she instructed. I placed the notebook on top. Order of events is here. Time, threats, wording. The lawyer's name is Bowman. Grace opened the notebook and reviewed the first few lines. She tapped her pen lightly. This is solid, direct, no interpretation. I nodded once. I kept it factual. Good. She flipped a page. We'll need supporting witnesses, people who saw your involvement with the kids, people who know your character, your routine, your presence in their lives. I listed names. Linda and George, my neighbors. They've known Daniela since she was in middle school. Grace leaned back. The judge will value long-term neighbors, especially George, since he's a retired judge. I thought the same. Grace closed the notebook. Let's speak to them today. They'll need to prepare statements. I stood. I'll drive. We left her office and stepped into the cold morning air. Frost glazed the sidewalk. I unlocked my car, and Grace climbed in. Walk me through Linda first, she requested. She's steady, I explained. Always pays attention. She was there for school drop-offs, summer visits, holiday calls. And George? Precise, observant. Grace nodded. Both useful. We pulled up to my street 20 minutes later. Linda's car was in the driveway. George's truck was parked beside it. I knocked on their front door once. Linda opened it immediately, her eyes widening. Helen, come in. George stood near the kitchen table with a stack of papers in front of him, reading glasses low on his nose. Grace introduced herself. I'm representing Helen. Linda placed a hand on her chest. Good. She needs someone strong. I took a seat across from them. I need your help. Statements. Facts you've witnessed. George lowered his glasses. Tell us what you need. Grace opened her folder. We're building a timeline. We need confirmation of Helen's involvement with the grandchildren, Daniela's visits, exchanges you witnessed, and any changes in contact. Anything observable. Linda sat straighter. I can list every holiday you hosted, every time you waited on the porch for them to arrive. George added, I remember when Daniela dropped the kids off for that long weekend. You stayed up half the night preparing activities. Grace took notes. Dates, approximations, who was present, what you personally saw. That's key. Linda leaned forward. I saw her cry after those long weeks with no calls. Grace raised a hand gently. We avoid emotional description. Focus on actions. Linda nodded. All right. I can describe the days she checked the mailbox, how she kept her phone nearby, what she said when calls didn't go through. George flipped a page in his own notebook. And I can speak to her character. Thoughtful, steady, predictable. No unpredictability that someone might call unstable. That's exactly what we need, Grace replied. I opened my envelope and pulled out the phone bill. Here, this matches the call attempts. George read the page carefully. Clear pattern. Grace placed it aside. Good, that goes in the file. Linda looked at me. What happened to bring all this on? I kept my voice even. They blocked every line. They rewrote the story. They attempted to intimidate me. George set down his glasses. Then you do this. You push through. Grace closed her notebook. We'll need your written statements by tomorrow. Short, clear, factual. Linda nodded firmly. We'll have them. George stood. Do you want me to testify when the time comes? Yes, Grace answered before I did. Your background adds weight. He nodded once. Count me in. We left their house after 30 minutes. Grace buckled her seatbelt. That went well. They're reliable. They've seen a lot, I said, starting the engine. She glanced at me. Next step, evidence consolidation. Everything you have goes into structured folders. Timeline, calls, financial, social media, witness statements. I've started categories. Good. I'll finalize the structure before filing. We returned to her office close to noon. Grace spread the documents across the desk and organized them into sections. Contact attempts here, bank records here, photos and posts on this side, everything labeled. I matched her pace, placing each item exactly where she indicated. Grace pointed to one pile. This section. This is the pattern. Routine involvement, then sudden cutoff. Judges look closely at the shift. It shows intent. I tapped the stack lightly. It's clear. She paused, looking me over. You're calm. I'm organized, I corrected. She closed the folder. That will serve you. The office door opened slightly. The receptionist leaned in. Mrs. McMillan, your next appointment canceled. Grace waved a hand. Good timing. We'll keep working. She turned back to me. Now, one more thing. We need a consistent narrative, not emotion, sequence. How it began, how it escalated, what you observed. I outlined it verbally, point by point. Blocked calls, removed posts, transfers, Thanksgiving, threat visit. Grace typed each line into a draft header. This will become the foundation of the petition, she explained. You're building credibility through order. Judges respond to clean timelines. I glanced around the office. Books on family law lined one wall. A framed certificate hung above her desk. Everything was neat, predictable, steady. Grace finished typing. We're ready for the next step. I folded my hands on the table. What happens now? We submit initial paperwork within 48 hours, she answered. Before that, we send a courtesy notice to Daniela's household, a non-accusatory request for explanation. They won't answer. Probably not, she agreed, but their silence documents itself. She stacked the folders. Once they ignore that letter, we file. I stood, lifting my coat from the back of the chair. Tell me when you need me. Tomorrow, Grace replied. Early. We sign, assemble, and finalize. This is moving quickly, which is good. You want momentum. I nodded and walked toward the door. Grace followed. Helen, I turned slightly. You're doing this the right way. she stated. Straight facts, straight lines. I gave a small nod. That's the plan. I stepped into the hallway, the folder heavy under my arm. Behind me, Grace closed the office door with a quiet click. The team was assembled. The evidence was organized. The next move belonged to us. I parked at the edge of the driveway and stepped out, folder under my arm. The villa stood quiet, except for faint movement behind the living room blinds. I walked up the path and knocked once. Footsteps approached. The lock clicked. Daniela opened the door halfway, her shoulders tense. Olivia hovered behind her, chin lifted, posture sharp. I kept my stance neutral. You asked to meet. Daniela hesitated, then stepped aside. Come in. I crossed the threshold. Olivia closed the door, arms folding instantly. We're here to talk. Peacefully. I glanced at both. Define peaceful. Daniela touched the back of a chair. We want to reset things. Start over. Olivia added quickly, this tension helps no one. I set the folder on the counter. Then be direct. Daniela moved first. We were overwhelmed. Holidays, the kids' schedules, work, everything piled up. Olivia's jaw tightened. We handled things wrong. We know that. I waited. Daniela's fingers tapped the table. So, we want a truce. A clean slate. Olivia stepped closer. We're offering an apology and a path forward. I opened the folder slowly. What changed? Daniela glanced at Olivia. Mom, we've been thinking. Olivia spoke over her. You pushing legal action. It caught us off guard. We didn't expect that. I straightened the pages. You wanted silence. Olivia shot a look at me. We wanted space. You blocked me, I countered. Daniela rubbed her forehead. It got messy. We didn't mean for it to go so far. I lifted my eyes, then acknowledged the actions. Olivia's voice thinned. You're not innocent in this either. I tapped the table. List one inappropriate action. Neither answered. Daniela lifted both hands slightly. Mom, we're trying here. We want peace. Peace built on lies collapses, I replied. Olivia's fingers curled. There it is, the attitude. I didn't shift. The facts are unchanged. Daniela stepped closer. Can we just talk without turning everything into a battle? I leaned an elbow on the counter. Then talk. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. We want you involved, carefully, slowly. On your terms, I noted. Olivia released a short laugh with no warmth. Of course on our terms. They're our children. I raised one brow. You mean my grandchildren? That landed. Daniela's shoulders tensed again. Olivia walked toward the kitchen island, bracing her palms against it. All right, enough circles. Here's the point. You can visit, but only when we supervise. Only when we approve. And only if you stop whatever case you're building. I folded my arms. That's not an apology. That's a condition. Daniela's voice shook slightly. Mom, this is a chance. Take it. No. Olivia straightened abruptly. You're unreasonable. You erased me, I answered. Daniela looked down. We panicked. Kids asked questions we weren't ready for. Then tell them the truth, I said. Olivia's tone sharpened. We won't let you rewrite the home environment. They need consistency. You told them I was gone, I replied. You built the inconsistency. Daniela's eyes flicked upward. We were trying to fix the stress level in the house. By removing me? Silence hit the room. Olivia broke it first. You made things harder with all the digging, the paperwork, the calls. You pushed us into a corner. I tapped a finger against the counter. No, I reacted. You acted first. Daniela's breathing came quicker. Mom, don't do this. Then explain, Olivia cut in. We don't want you around. There, direct enough? Daniela closed her eyes for a second. Live. But Olivia kept going. You disrupt the rhythm. You question our choices. You show up when you want. You make everything heavier. I adjusted my stance. Facts only. The last time I showed up, it was for a holiday I celebrated with you for 30 years. Daniela's lips pressed into a thin line. We weren't ready. That was clear. Olivia's voice snapped like a dry twig. We're telling you plainly, we don't want you involved. I opened the folder deliberately. Then don't ask for peace. Olivia pointed at the papers. What is that? Documentation. Her nostrils flared. You really are doing this? Yes, I replied. Daniela stepped toward me, palm out. Stop, please. I closed the folder. You came here pretending remorse. Olivia stepped in. We came here offering you a chance to step back before everything explodes. Explode where? I asked. In front of a court? Daniela's voice dropped. Mom. I lifted my chin. I'm done being afraid of your reactions. Olivia scoffed. You think this makes you strong? It makes me consistent. Daniela's eyes glistened, but she kept her tone flat. We're begging you. Don't move forward. You're not begging, I replied. You're preventing. Olivia shook her head. You're impossible. Then leave, I answered. Doors behind you. Daniela's face collapsed into shock. Mom! I pointed to the entryway. You told me your house was only for family. Now this one isn't for theatrics. Olivia grabbed her bag. You'll regret this. I turned toward the door and opened it wide. Then don't come back. Daniela froze for a moment, staring at me like she didn't recognize the posture. Her breath tightened, chest rising once, twice. Olivia jerked her arm. Let's go. Daniela stepped out slowly, as if expecting me to call her back. I didn't. She looked at me one last time. You're choosing this path. I kept my voice level. No, I'm following yours to the end. Olivia pulled her toward the car. The doors slammed hard. The engine revved. They reversed fast, tires crunching over the gravel. I closed the door, locked it, and placed the folder on the table. The villa was silent again. The confrontation was over. The record was clear. Grace unlocked her office door and gestured me inside. The folders from yesterday were stacked neatly on her desk. She pulled her chair forward and opened the top file. Today we finalize, she instructed, tapping the corner of a signature page. I set my bag down and took the seat opposite her. Tell me where to start. She handed me a pen. Initial petition. Read each line out loud as you sign. It keeps the record clean. I placed the paper flat and read every sentence steady and clear. Grace watched the pacing, nodding at each section. Good, she murmured, flipping to the next form. Now the affidavit. Factual only. I signed again. She checked each signature against the header. Perfect. The receptionist knocked and slipped inside with 3 copies of the notarization sheet. Grace pointed to the bottom line. Initial here. I did. Grace gathered the stack. Next step, supporting documents. We put them in strict chronological order. I opened my folder and handed her the call logs. She placed them under Section A. Blocked calls, consistent dates, she noted. Strong foundation. Next came the bank transfer summary. She slid those into Section B. This shows continued involvement and financial support. Judges look at intent and history. I placed the printouts of Daniela's posts, and the caption implying I had moved away. Grace inserted them into Section C. This is critical. It establishes deception. She reached for another folder. Witness statements. A knock sounded again. Linda and George entered the office quietly. Linda carried a typed page with careful margins. George held a yellow legal pad. Grace nodded to them. Right on time. Linda stepped closer. We kept everything short. George adjusted his glasses. Dates, times, actions. Grace scanned Linda's page first. Documented porch visits, holiday involvement, grandchildren drop-offs, clean. She looked at George's notes. Clear observations, no opinions, exactly what we need. I gave them both a small nod. Thank you. Linda touched my arm lightly. We're with you all the way. Grace slid their statements into Section D. These carry weight. Long-term neighbors are credible. George tapped his notebook. If the judge needs testimony, I'll be there. Grace answered, You'll likely be called. Linda's face tightened with determination. Good. They left after offering another quiet nod. Grace closed the folder. Everything is strong. Now we build the supplemental packet. She opened her laptop and cued the digital files. Here's the email log. Here's the voicemail record. Here's the communication timeline. I pointed to the screen. Make sure the timestamps show the gaps. They do, Grace confirmed. 7 months of unanswered calls followed by blocked status. The pattern speaks for itself. She plugged in her printer. We make 4 full copies. 1 for the court, 1 for the opposing party, 1 for backup, 1 for you. The printer began spitting out pages. While it worked, she glanced at me. You're steady through all this. I kept my posture still. Clarity helps. She gave a short nod. Judges appreciate clear petitioners. No drama. Just facts. The printer beeped. Grace sorted each stack with quick, practiced movements. Next, the notice letter. Not required, but it strengthens our side. She typed in a concise paragraph. A request for explanation regarding the sudden severance of contact between the petitioner and the minor children, sent in good faith prior to initiating court involvement. She printed it and handed it to me. Sign at the bottom. I signed. She sealed the letter in an envelope. Certified mail. Their failure to respond becomes evidence. I watched her place it in a bin marked Outgoing Legal. Grace pressed her palms on the table. Final step, the court filing. When? I asked. In an hour. I stood. Let's go now. She gathered the 4 full packets, clipped them tightly, and slid them into a reinforced briefcase. We file in person. It shows seriousness. We walked down the hallway and out to the parking lot. The air was crisp. Grace locked her car and motioned toward mine. Yours is easier to navigate downtown. I unlocked the passenger door for her. She placed the briefcase on her lap. Drive straight to the courthouse. I'll guide you to the clerk's office. The drive was quiet except for Grace reviewing the pages one last time. She tapped a few lines as she read. Everything clean. We reached the courthouse steps within 20 minutes. I parked and grabbed the briefcase. Grace walked beside me, her pace brisk. Inside, the metal detector beeped softly as we passed. Grace led the way to the clerk's window. A clerk with square glasses and a neutral expression slid the form tray toward us. Grace placed the petition on top. Filing for emergency preliminary visitation review. The clerk flipped through the first few pages, then stamped each one in steady rhythm. Case number assigned. You'll receive the hearing date by mail and email. Grace accepted the stamped packet. Thank you. We stepped aside. Grace handed me my copy. This is now official. I held the folder firmly. Good. She nodded once. Next phase, wait for their reaction. And trust me, there will be one. We left the courthouse, doors closing behind us with a heavy click. The filing was complete. The case had begun. The courthouse hallway was quiet, except for the shuffle of shoes and the low hum of fluorescent lights. Grace walked beside me, holding the case folder against her chest. She checked the docket posted on the wall. Room 2B, she noted, tilting her head toward the left corridor. I followed. The door was already open. Inside, Daniela and Olivia sat at the far table with their lawyer, Bowman. Daniela kept her eyes down. Olivia kept her spine straight, arms locked across her chest. Grace set our folder on the table. We sit on the right. I took my seat. My hands rested palm down on the table, still, deliberate. The judge entered moments later. She adjusted her reading glasses, looked at the file, then at the room. Call the case. A clerk read the names. Daniela flinched at the sound of mine. Olivia didn't move. Grace leaned slightly toward me. Stay steady, no reactions. The judge lifted the top page. We'll begin with opening statements. Bowman rose first. His expression was polished, his tone smooth. Your Honor, this matter is a misunderstanding. My clients maintain a stable household for their children. Their concern is not animosity, but boundaries. Mrs. Whitmore, while well-intentioned, has displayed behaviors that cause distress within the family unit. We aim to protect the children's emotional environment from instability. Olivia nodded subtly. Daniela kept her eyes fixed on the table. Bowman continued. We believe this petition is unnecessary and disruptive. The children are thriving. We request dismissal. Grace stood. She placed both hands on the table for a moment before stepping forward. Your Honor, this case concerns a grandmother who maintained consistent, healthy involvement with her grandchildren for years. Without explanation, contact was severed. Phone numbers were blocked, letters returned, social media access restricted. Then, the children were told their grandmother had moved away. Several heads turned slightly at that line. Grace continued, crisp and measured. Mrs. Whitmore has documented every attempt to maintain a relationship, every rejection, every misrepresentation. This petition seeks restoration of contact, not conflict. The judge nodded once. We'll proceed with testimony. Bowman signaled Daniela. She rose, smoothing her blouse with quick, uneven movements. She stepped to the witness stand, avoiding my line of sight. The clerk swore her in. Bowman approached. Describe your concerns regarding your mother's involvement. Daniela clasped her hands. She calls a lot, sometimes too many times in a row. It stresses the kids when they hear her voicemails. Bowman nodded. Did she respect your schedule? Daniela's eyes flickered. Not always. She'd asked to visit even when the kids had activities, and the Thanksgiving visit. She arrived without warning. Bowman paced slowly. How did that affect your family holiday? Daniela inhaled sharply. It upset the children. We were having dinner with Olivia's parents. It wasn't appropriate for her to walk in like that. Bowman turned to the judge. This pattern of over-involvement is the issue. The judge looked at Daniela. Why did you block her number? Daniela blinked hard. We needed space. Space or severance? The judge asked. Daniela swallowed. It was temporary. We plan to reintroduce contact later. Grace stood. Permission to cross. Proceed, the judge answered. Grace approached slowly. Daniela, answer directly. Did your mother ever endanger your children? Daniela shook her head quickly. No. Did she ever ignore your rules or discipline choices? No. Did she ever show up intoxicated, unstable, or unpredictable? No. Grace paused. Did she ever refuse a request from you or Olivia regarding the children? Daniela's shoulders sagged slightly. No. Grace opened a folder. You stated the children were stressed by her voicemails. Are you referring to the months she called without receiving a single reply? Daniela stared at the table. We needed quiet. Grace held up a copy of the phone log. This shows 47 unanswered calls, blocked status confirmed by the carrier. How is that quiet? That's erasure. Daniela's breath hitched. We didn't know what to say. Grace set the document down. One more question. Did you tell your children that Helen moved away? Daniela froze completely. Olivia shot her a sharp look. Bowman shifted in his seat. The judge leaned forward. Answer the question. Daniela's voice thinned to a whisper. Yes. The judge's pen stopped mid-note. You misled the children about their grandmother's location. Daniela nodded once, barely visible. Grace stepped back. No further questions. Daniela returned to her seat, face tight, hands trembling slightly. Olivia kept her jaw set, refusing to look at me or Grace. Bowman quickly stood. We call Olivia Pierce. Olivia rose, heels clicking in crisp rhythm. She held her chin high as she took the stand. After being sworn in, Bowman began. Olivia, describe your concerns. She crossed one leg over the other. Consistency. The kids need structure. Helen disrupts that. She inserts herself into things she doesn't understand. Bowman nodded. Give an example. Olivia shrugged lightly. She wanted weekly dinners. She wanted drop-ins. She wanted to teach them routines we don't use at home. Grace raised an eyebrow slightly at me. I remained still. Bowman continued. Did her actions cause tension in your household? Yes, Olivia answered promptly. Brad was stressed, I was stressed, the kids were confused. Why restrict contact? Olivia lifted her chin further. To stabilize the environment. Did you expect this legal response? No, we thought she would understand boundaries. Grace stood before Bowman could ask anything further. Cross-examination. The judge gestured for her to proceed. Grace approached with calm, steady steps. Olivia, show us your definition of boundaries. Did Helen ever show up unannounced before Thanksgiving? No. Did she ever push past a request you made for the children? No. Did she communicate respectfully? Yes. Did she ever ask for anything inappropriate? No. Grace held up a page. Explain this, then. She read the caption from the birthday photo. Our whole family. Grace lifted her eyes. Helen wasn't invited, correct? Olivia's jaw clenched. Correct. And she wasn't notified either. Correct? Yes. Grace placed the page on the table. Explain excluding her from every holiday, every event, and then labeling yourselves as the whole family. Olivia stiffened. We didn't think she needed to be involved. Grace's tone sharpened slightly. Why lie about her moving away? Why tell the children she relocated? Why block her number? Why return her letters unopened? Olivia's mouth tightened. We did what we thought was best. Grace stepped back. For whom? Olivia didn't answer. The judge intervened. I'll take that as silence. Grace returned to our table. The judge shifted her stack of papers. I want to hear from the petitioner. Grace gave me a small nod. Go. I stood and approached the stand. The clerk swore me in. I placed my hands on the railing. Grace asked the first question. Did you ever endanger your grandchildren? No. Did you ever ignore parental instructions? No. Describe your relationship with the children before contact ceased. Steady, I answered. Visits, calls, school events. They knew me. I knew them. Describe the change. I listed the actions one by one. Blocked number, unreturned calls, no answers to letters, removed from photos, information withheld, then being told the holiday was only for family. Grace nodded. One more. Did you ever move? No. I remained in the same home for 22 years. She faced the judge. No further questions. Bowman attempted cross-examination, but the judge cut him short. Her answers are clear. Move on. She closed the file, tapped it once, and addressed the room. I've heard enough for today. I will review the evidence and issue directives for the next hearing. The gavel struck. Court is adjourned. Daniela rose quickly, eyes red. Olivia grabbed her bag abruptly and stalked toward the exit. Bowman followed with stiff shoulders. Grace placed a steady hand on my arm. They showed cracks today. I picked up my folder. Good. We left the courtroom, step for measured step. The first hearing was done. The truth was opening. The courtroom was fuller than before. A low murmur moved through the benches as people settled in. Grace rested our folder on the table, her hands flat against the cover. She took one slow breath and gave me a brief nod. Daniela and Olivia entered with Bowman. Daniela walked small, shoulders curled inward. Olivia moved sharply, each step clipped, like she intended to cut the floor with her heels. Bowman carried a thick binder. The judge stepped in. Everyone rose. She seated herself, adjusted her glasses, and lifted the psychologist's report. We're here to conclude the matter of Whitmore versus Pierce, she announced. I have reviewed all exhibits and the child psychologist's findings. Grace didn't move. I kept my hands folded, steady. The judge opened the report. The interviews with the children revealed troubling inconsistencies between what they were told and what is true. Daniela's eyes dropped instantly. Olivia locked her stare on the front wall. The judge continued. Emma expressed confusion and guilt regarding her grandmother's absence. She reported being told that Mrs. Whitmore relocated. She questioned whether she caused the separation. A soft ripple of reaction moved through the gallery. The judge flipped a page. Jack believed his grandmother might be deceased. This impression was not corrected. In fact, it appears the adults in the household allowed this misunderstanding to persist. Daniela covered her mouth. Olivia's jaw tightened like a clamp. The judge closed the file. These findings align with deliberate obstruction of a pre-existing healthy grandparent-grandchild relationship. Bowman rose. Your Honor? The judge lifted her hand. Sit. He obeyed. The judge turned to Daniela and Olivia. You misinformed the children. You blocked communication, returned letters, and removed their grandmother from their lives without cause. You then described the resulting confusion as instability caused by the petitioner. That logic is unacceptable. Daniela's fingers twisted into a knot. Olivia didn't blink. The judge shifted her gaze to me. Mrs. Whitmore maintained consistent involvement with her grandchildren for years. There is no evidence of danger, unpredictability, or interference. The breakdown in contact was not initiated by her actions. Grace tapped one finger on the table, a small, satisfied cue. The judge continued. Additionally, the Thanksgiving incident, where Mrs. Whitmore was turned away and referred to as not family, demonstrates hostility, not boundary setting. A hush dropped over the room. The judge folded her hands. Before I issue the ruling, do the respondents wish to offer any final clarification? Daniela stood slowly. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Your Honor, we never meant to harm the children. We were overwhelmed. Things spiraled. Olivia stood beside her. We were protecting our home. That was our only goal. The judge looked unmoved. Protecting your home does not require erasing a grandparent. Bowman cleared his throat. Your Honor, we request leniency regarding the structure of visitation. No. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. You will hear my ruling as written. Grace straightened. The air tightened. The judge lifted a single sheet. The court grants the petitioner's request in full. Daniela's knees buckled slightly. Olivia's hands curled into fists. Bowman closed his binder without looking up. The judge read each line with calm precision. Mrs. Whitmore will have unsupervised visitation with the children 1 weekend per month. Additional visits will occur on alternating major holidays. A weekly video call will be established. The respondents will maintain the schedule without obstruction. Daniela pressed her hands to her face. Olivia went completely still. The judge continued. Family therapy is mandated for all parties. The cost will be borne entirely by the respondents. Attendance is compulsory. A murmur traveled across the courtroom. And one more condition. Grace lifted her chin slightly. I held my posture. The judge looked directly at Daniela and Olivia. Within the next 10 days, both of you will participate in a session where the truth is explained to the children, clearly, fully, and without deflection. The psychologist will be present. The children will be told that their grandmother did not move away. She did not abandon them. She attempted contact repeatedly. Olivia's breath shot out in a sharp exhale. Daniela stared at the floor as tears slid down her hands. The judge was not finished. Should you fail to comply or attempt to soften the truth, I will expand visitation further and impose penalties. She signed the order. This court stands adjourned. The gavel struck once. Clean. Final. Bowman gathered his papers with stiff movements. Daniela remained frozen in her chair, unable to rise. Olivia touched her arm once, but Daniela didn't respond. Grace placed the file in her bag. We have everything we came for. I nodded once. Good. We stepped into the hallway. Carol and 2 others from the support group approached immediately. Carol set her hand on my forearm. You did it. I nodded again. Words weren't needed. Tom Bradshaw stepped forward next. This is a clear ruling. They won't shake it off easily. Grace checked her watch. The timeline starts today. I'll handle scheduling with the psychologist. I thanked her with a slight incline of my head. She understood. Through the glass partition, I saw Daniela finally rise, shoulders shaking. Olivia guided her out with a rigid grip. They didn't look toward the hallway. Grace touched my elbow lightly. Let's go. We walked toward the exit, steady and slow. Outside, cool air moved through the courtyard. People filtered past. Lawyers, clerks, families, each lost in their own matters. I paused near the steps. Grace waited beside me. This ruling stands, she noted. They can resent it. They can resist therapy, but they can't undo it. I looked forward, level and calm. Good, she gave a faint smile. You're ready for the next part. I nodded once. I am. The verdict was behind us. The reunion waited ahead. Brad's SUV slowed at the curb in front of my house. The engine idled for a few seconds before the doors opened. Daniela stepped out first. Her posture was stiff, her hair pulled back too tightly, eyes swollen from the night before. Olivia emerged on this passenger side, clutching her phone like a weapon she couldn't use here. Emma and Caleb climbed out last. Both held their backpacks, both looked down, both paused before reaching the walkway, as if unsure whose house they were approaching. I stood at the door, hands folded in front of me. Grace had told me, "Keep your tone neutral. Let them come to you." Daniela walked Emma forward. Olivia kept one hand on Caleb's shoulder. Daniela stopped 2 steps from the porch. "We'll be back at 6. Her voice trembled on the last word. I pointed to the printed copy of the order taped neatly beside the doorframe. 7. Daniela's eyes dropped. Olivia tugged her elbow. They turned without argument and headed back to the car. Emma lingered at the bottom step. She finally raised her head. "Hi." I stepped aside. "Come in." Caleb followed her, gripping the strap of his backpack. He glanced up, cautious but curious. Inside, the living room lights were warm. Cookies cooled on this counter. The table was set with grilled cheese ingredients. Everything simple, predictable, stable. Emma walked in a small circle, scanning the framed photos on the shelf. Her toddler drawings, the picture of her holding a sunflower at age 5. Her gaze froze on the quilt draped over the armchair. "You kept it," she whispered. I nodded once. "Of course." Caleb hovered behind her. His fingers twitched like he wanted to touch something, but didn't know what was allowed. "You can sit," I told him. "Anywhere." He moved to the couch and perched on the edge. Emma approached the kitchen doorway. "It smells like cookies." "A fresh batch, still warm." She took a step forward. "Chocolate chip?" "Yes." Caleb slid off the couch, suddenly less hesitant, and followed her into the kitchen. Emma picked up a cookie, broke it open, and studied the soft center. "These look like the ones from when we were little." I placed a plate on the table. "Same recipe." Caleb took one and bit it quickly, crumbs scattering near his shirt. He brushed them off with the back of his hand. Emma's eyes lifted. "You really didn't move away?" "No," I answered, steady. "I've been here the whole time." Caleb looked up sharply. "Then where did you go?" "I didn't go anywhere." I pointed to the folder on the counter. "I tried calling, sending letters. All here." Emma's face tightened. "Dad told us you were tired of us. He said you needed space." Caleb added, "He said your house was far, like a different place." Emma shot him a glare. "Don't say too much." But he kept staring at me, waiting. I kept my tone even. None of that was true. Emma gripped the edge of the table. "So you didn't leave?" "No." Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. "They lied." Emma looked at him sharply again, eyes watering. "Stop." I pulled out 3 plates. "Lunch is ready. You can help if you want." Emma stepped toward the stove. "I can flip the sandwiches." Caleb grabbed the tomato soup cans. "I'll open these." We moved around each other naturally. No tension, just tasks. They relaxed without noticing it. We ate at the kitchen table, grilled cheese, tomato soup, apple slices, and a small bowl of grapes. Emma dipped her sandwich into the soup and glanced at me. "We had a therapy session yesterday. Dr. Chen asked a lot of questions." I nodded. "She's there to help." "She told us we're allowed to ask anything." Emma took a slow breath. "So I'm asking now." "I'll answer." Why didn't you come earlier, when we were smaller?" "I did," I replied. "Many times. Your parents blocked my calls." Caleb let out a small gasp. "Dad blocked you?" "Both of them," I confirmed. "My phone logs show everything." Emma picked up a grape and rolled it between her fingers. "Dr. Chen said the house had misinformation. That's what she called it." "That's accurate." Caleb leaned toward the table. "They told me you were gone. Like gone. Emma shot him a look again. Hurt and fear mixed. But he didn't look away. I kept my tone steady. "No one told you the truth. Now you know it." Emma placed the grape down. "Why?" "That's something only your parents can answer, and they will. Dr. Chen will make sure of it." Emma nodded slowly. "She said so." We finished the meal without rush. Caleb asked for another sandwich. Emma cleaned her bowl quietly. After lunch, I showed them the boxes I'd set on the living room floor. "You can look through these if you want." Emma crouched down, opening the first lid. Inside were drawings she'd made, flowers, houses, 2 stick figures holding hands. Caleb leaned over her shoulder. "This one was yours," I told him, lifting a faded page. "You drew a dinosaur wearing a backpack." He cracked a small smile. "I remember that." Emma pulled out a photo. "This was at the pumpkin patch." I nodded. "Your father and I took you both there." Emma's voice caught. "He told us you didn't like going places." "I liked going anywhere with you." Caleb reached into the box again. "This is a picture of me on the slide." "You were scared at first," I replied. "You held my hand at the top." Emma shut the lid softly. "We missed a lot." I didn't respond. She didn't need me to. The clock reached 3. Emma glanced toward the window. "We still have hours, right?" "Yes." Caleb pointed toward the backyard. "Can we go outside?" "The sprinkler is set up, towels on the chair." They hurried to the back door, shoes scattered, backpack straps tangled. They stepped into the yard and paused only long enough to feel the warm breeze before running into the spray. Their laughter rose quickly, bright, sharp, spilling over the fence. I stood by the doorway, arms crossed gently, watching. Emma waved. "Come here." I stepped onto the deck but stayed dry. "I'll watch from here." Caleb sprinted through the arc of water. Emma followed, hair plastered to her face. They weren't avoiding me anymore. They weren't confused. They were just children again. At 6:45, they came in to dry off. I handed them warm towels. Emma hugged hers. "Can we come next month, too?" "It's already on the schedule." Caleb nodded quickly. "Good." Emma walked toward the front door, then turned. "You didn't leave us." "No." She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. Tight, small, honest. Caleb followed, pressing his forehead lightly against my side. I placed one hand on each of their shoulders. "I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Outside, headlights flashed in the driveway. They didn't flinch. They stayed a few seconds longer. Then Emma whispered, "See you soon." And they walked out, to parents who could no longer hide the truth. I spent the next week organizing the house for the new routine. Emma's drawings stayed on the fridge, and Caleb's baseball schedule stayed on the wall. The place felt steady again, like it finally matched the rhythm of my days. Late one morning, Grace stepped into my kitchen with a thin stack of papers and set them on the counter. "You have a full month of visits locked in," she noted while adjusting her glasses. "No delays, no interference." I pushed a mug toward her. "Good. Let's keep everything documented." She tapped the papers. "You're doing exactly what the court expects, consistency. That's how this sticks." Before she left, she paused at the doorway. "You rebuilt yourself through this. Don't underestimate that." She gave a small nod and stepped out. The house stayed quiet for a few minutes until my phone buzzed. A message popped up from the Grandparent's voice forum. "We heard about your case. Congratulations. Some of us would love your insight." I read it twice, then opened the thread. Dozens of grandparents had shared updates about court hearings, supervised visits, or stalled negotiations. I typed a quick response. "Document everything, every call, every message. Don't react to threats. Act through paper only. Within seconds, hearts and replies appeared. Later that afternoon, Linda knocked and held up a bag of groceries. "You looked busy last week. Thought you might need this." I opened the door wider. "Come in. I just put water on." She stepped into the kitchen, glancing at the rows of papers on the table. "You're running a small command center in here." "Feels like it," I replied. "They're still adjusting." Her hands folded over her purse strap. "People around town know what you went through. They've been talking." She placed the bag of groceries on the counter. "Most of them think you handled yourself better than anyone else would have." I uncapped a bottle of sparkling water. "It wasn't about handling myself. It was about the kids." Linda nodded once. "And they saw that." We sat for a few minutes. She looked at the rose bush outside my window. The frost hadn't touched it yet. "Those roses of yours are holding on," she murmured. I glanced at them. "They'll last through winter. They always do." When she left, her presence lingered, warm, familiar, steady. That evening, George stopped by with a binder under his arm, his posture straight as ever. He placed it on the table and flipped it open. "I marked the court's language you should keep an eye on," he explained, sliding the binder toward me. "It'll guide how you respond if anything goes sideways." I skimmed through the tabs. "You didn't have to do all this." His gaze stayed firm. "Yes, I did. You took a hit most people don't recover from. You kept standing. That deserves reinforcement." He closed the binder gently. "Justice isn't loud. It's paperwork and patience." I gave a quiet laugh. "I'm learning." "Good." He tipped his head in approval and walked out. 2 days later, I posted a longer thread on Grandparent's Voice. I wrote about timelines, phone logs, certified letters, and keeping emotions out of email drafts. I wrote about court-appointed psychologists and how to prepare children for first visits. I ended with, "Don't let fear make decisions for you." The replies poured in. "Thank you. This helps more than you know. You gave me hope today. We needed this voice." Someone added, "You should lead a session." I stared at the suggestion for a long moment, then typed back, "If you organize it, I'll join." That weekend, the group held a video call with nearly 30 grandparents. When my camera turned on, dozens of small squares lit up. A gray-haired woman waved. "There she is, the famous Helen." I shook my head. "Not famous, just experienced." A man leaned closer to his screen. "How did you keep calm when they cornered you at home?" "I didn't react in the moment," I answered. "I reacted on paper later. Courts read paper, not arguments." A woman wiped under her eyes. "My daughter hasn't talked to me in a year. I don't know where to start." I held my notes up. "Start here. Timeline, call logs, texts, screenshots. Structure first, emotion later." Someone unmuted. "You're giving us courage. That's rare." I kept my tone steady. "Truth is quiet, but it stands. Hold on to that." The call lasted an hour. By the end, they asked for another session the following week. I agreed. The next morning, Grace called. "I heard you're becoming a bit of a spokesperson," she teased lightly. I slid a stack of folders into a drawer. "Just helping people understand the process." "People trust survivors of something," she replied. "You earned that." I checked the clock. "Emma and Caleb arrive in 2 hours. Let's keep our focus there." "Always," she noted, then hung up. Around noon, community activity began buzzing. The town volunteer coordinator emailed me to ask if I'd speak at the senior center about navigating difficult family dynamics. Then the local library reached out about possibly leading a small roundtable on resilience. I read each message carefully. None of them felt intrusive. They felt like invitations to add something steady to the world again. That afternoon, Emma and Caleb climbed out of the car with backpacks slung over their shoulders. Daniela stayed behind the wheel, eyes forward, hands gripping the steering wheel. Olivia looked away. Emma walked up first. "Grandma, can we show you something later?" Caleb made a drawing. Caleb lifted a folded page from his pocket. I nodded. "Of course, bring it inside." Daniela lowered her window an inch. "They'll be ready at 6. I kept my voice even. "The order holds until 7. Her jaw tightened, but she gave a curt nod and drove off. Inside, Caleb unfolded the paper carefully, a simple drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. One wore glasses like mine. I crouched beside him. "That's us?" He gave a small nod. "Yes." Emma leaned on the counter. "We told our teacher we're seeing you more. She said it's good." I handed them cookies from the cooling tray. "Then let's keep it good." For the rest of the afternoon, we built puzzles, organized crayons, and helped Caleb glue pieces onto a school project. Nothing dramatic, just steady, ordinary hours, exactly what children needed. When it was time to prepare dinner, the kitchen filled with light from the setting sun. Emma reached into the drawer for forks. "Grandma?" she murmured, keeping her voice low so Caleb wouldn't hear. "People talk at school. Some kids ask what happened. I don't know what to say." I placed a hand on the counter. "You say the truth. We're fixing things. That's enough." She nodded. "Okay." At 6:58, Daniela's car pulled into the driveway. Emma hugged me first, tight but quick. Caleb followed, pressing the drawing into my hand before running to the car. When the door closed, I looked at the drawing again. 3 stick figures, holding steady. That evening, I logged into Grandparent's voice. A new comment greeted me. "You're helping all of us stand again." I typed back, "They tried to erase me. Now I help others write their names back." Then I closed the laptop, turned off the kitchen light, and let the quiet of the house settle. Not empty, but full of something earned. I spread the papers across the kitchen table early that morning. The envelope for Emma and Caleb sat in the center, still unsealed. The house stayed steady around me, quiet, organized, nothing extra. I checked the clock, then picked up my pen. Justice isn't what you win in court. It's what you teach your children. I spoke the line out loud while writing it. Clear, direct, no decoration. A knock landed on the door. I opened it, and Grace stepped inside holding a thin file. She placed it on the table. "Final compliance report. They completed therapy. The psychologist confirmed they're cooperating." I flipped through the pages. "Good. The kids need structure." Grace folded her arms. "You're closing this chapter cleanly. Not many people manage that." I tapped the envelope. "I want them to start with something solid." She nodded once. "Finish the letter. They'll remember every word." Then she pulled her coat tighter and stepped back outside. I returned to the table and wrote the next lines out loud. "Tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when people want silence. Each sentence short, practical, nothing dramatic." Another knock came, lighter this time. I opened the door to find Linda holding a casserole wrapped in foil. "I brought dinner," she mentioned, handing it over. "Heard the realtor booked the photography session." "She comes tomorrow," I replied, setting the casserole down. "Listing goes up Monday." Linda adjusted her purse. "You're sure you're ready for that?" "I'm sure." She glanced around the kitchen. "Feels different in here, in a good way." "It's quiet," I answered. "The right kind." She touched my arm briefly, then turned toward the door. "You earned that quiet." After she left, I sealed the casserole, put out 2 plates, and kept moving. No lingering, no replaying anything. The rhythm stayed simple. By late afternoon, I stepped outside with the hose to rinse the walkway before the realtor's visit. George appeared by the fence, hands in his pockets. "You prepping the place?" he asked. "It needs to look clean for the photos." He nodded. "Listing day's a big day." "It is." He leaned slightly on the fence. "You made every choice with clarity. That's not common." I shut off the hose. It had to be done. He gave one short nod. "If you need a witness statement for any buyer questioning the property line, I still have old paperwork. Good to know." He walked off, steady as always. Inside, I wiped the counters, put the letter back on the table, and reread the closing paragraph. "You're allowed to rebuild. You're allowed to walk away from places that stopped being home." I added one more line. "Don't disappear for anyone." My phone buzzed. A message from Hannah, the realtor. "I'm 5 minutes out." When she arrived, she stepped through the doorway with her laptop tucked under her arm. The villa photos look excellent, she noted, flipping the screen open. Bright rooms, clean lines, buyers will move fast. List it plain, no emotional language, I instructed. Of course. She entered a few details. Once offers come in, I'll filter the serious ones. Keep me updated. She clicked through a few windows, then snapped her laptop shut. I'll send confirmation tonight. She reached the door, paused, and looked back. Not everyone sells with this level of certainty. I'm not carrying leftover weight, I answered. I'm done with it. She nodded and left. When the door shut, I opened the envelope again, not to read the letter, just to make sure it lay flat. I slipped it into a drawer where only important things stayed. My phone buzzed again around 6. A notification from Grandparent's voice. Your notes helped 2 new members today. I typed a short reply. Keep your records clean. That's your shield. Replies came fast. Thank you. You're keeping us steady. Please lead next week's session. I typed back. I will. The evening stayed quiet. No clutter, no noise, just the steady hum of a house that finally felt mine. The next morning, Hannah texted, "Listing is live." I opened the link, clear photos, accurate description, nothing sentimental. Another ping arrived seconds later. First showing scheduled for Tuesday. I set the phone down and walked to the kitchen window. The walkway was clean, the roses outside just starting to open. No need for a long look. Later that afternoon, the phone buzzed again. Hannah. I picked up on the second ring. She didn't waste time. You got your first offer. Full price. No contingencies. I glanced at the table, then the window, then back to the phone. Accept it. I'll send the paperwork within the hour. Good. I hung up softly and rested my hand on the counter. Nothing heavy, nothing dramatic, just completion. I opened the drawer, pulled out the envelope addressed to Emma and Caleb, and placed it on the table. It looked right where it sat. Simple, clear, ready. Then, because some lines deserve to be spoken aloud, I repeated the closing words in the same steady tone I'd use on camera. By spring, I sold the villa. I didn't vanish. I just moved out of their story. I turned off the kitchen light. The house stayed calm behind me, quiet, straightforward, and fully my own. So that's how it ended. Not with shouting, not with chaos, just clear choices, steady steps, and a life that finally belonged to me again. If you're going through something similar, I hope my story shows you that you're allowed to stand your ground. You're allowed to protect your place in your family, and you're allowed to walk away from what no longer respects you. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening all the way through. It means more than you know. If this story made you think or reminded you of someone you care about, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Take care, stay steady, and I'll see you in the next video.